Om Ajnanatimandasya Jananjana Shanakya Saksamilitam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namah Shichitayamanopistam Staptam Yena Bhutaleshkam Rupkadamayam Dadati Svapanantikam Vandeham Shiyo Shiyuda Padakamanam Shiyum Vaishnavam Shri Upam Jagajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savlutam Parajana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lita Shivshakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sinudina Bandha Jadpate Gopesha Gopkakanta Radhakanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gauri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavana Sutadevi Panamama Kripaye Pankha Kalpta Visha Kripa Sindhivisa Patinam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Nama Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sadhika Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswata Deve Gauravani Pracharini. Nirvishesha Shinivadi Paskachai Desatai. Hare Krishna. This morning we will start with the 14th chapter, the three modes of material nature that in the previous chapter we have heard how the conditioned soul, although different from material nature, is entangled in material nature. Now, in this chapter, we will hear more details how the living entity is limited and controlled by powerful shackles of the material modes, three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Then near the end of this chapter, Arjuna will ask to Krishna, what are the symptoms of one who has transcended these modes? And then after giving the main symptoms, Krishna, he gives the method how to transcend the modes of nature. So it's the living entity, because of its contaminated consciousness, it connects with material nature. We will hear the main characteristics already of the modes in the first 9 verses here, that Krishna will tell us how these modes are conditioning us. As he will speak about mode of goodness, conditions ones to happiness, and mode of passion conditions one to fruitive activities, greed, and ignorance to madness. So we'll now hear from the first verse of this chapter, Lord Krishna speaking. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Vayambuya Pavakshami Jnanam Jnanam Uttamam Yachratva Munaya Sarve Param Siddhim Ito Kata. Translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again I shall declare to you the supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained the supreme perfection." So the best of all knowledge, that how is this the best of all knowledge? Baladev Vidyabhushan, he explains, it is the best of all kinds of knowledge about Prakriti and the Jiva. That is, one has to see it in this category. It's the best of knowledge in the category of Prakriti and Jiva. The material nature and the spirit soul. That in the purport, and that's interesting. Now the Lord himself is further enlightening Arjuna. If one understands this chapter through philosophical speculation, he will come to understand to an understanding of devotional service. It's interesting, but Prabhupada before us many times condemned speculation that you may remember it since 250. Yeah. 56. There Srila Prabhupada speaks about the Muni. The word Muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. So that kind of speculation we reject. You don't come to a factual conclusion. That's interesting. And it just agitates the mind. It's interesting. But here it's different. Prabhupada speaks about philosophical speculation. What is the difference between philosophical speculation and mental speculation? Who can say what's the difference? I guess. Please.
Philosophical speculation is a proper study of text without any
Proper study. Okay. Any other thoughts? Yes. In disciplic succession. Close. Coming closer.
It is not basically just telling what is coming in mind, but looking to some years, experts and their work and their speculation.
Yeah. So it is trying to understand what one has heard from bona fide sources and trying to understand and then using one's intelligence to understand that more deeply. But it's based on what one has heard from bona fide sources. Of course, that's disciplic succession, like it is said, that But if one does that, if one studies this chapter with attention, well, one will come to the conclusion the only way to transcend these modes is devotional service. So the conclusion leads one to the practice of devotional service. And that's what Srila Prabhupada is referring to. Then he will come to an understanding of devotional service. Good. So in this chapter, the Supreme Personality of Godhead explains what these modes are. What are the modes? How they bind and how they give liberation. So that's, we will hear also in the 16th chapter today, that it's a divine quality to know what's binding and what's liberating, because then you can do the needful to give up your bondage to this material world and get liberated.
But I have heard the word known as utpreksha in Sanskrit. So, when we read the commentaries by acharyas, they also give some other meaning which we do not know. And they give this meaning. For example, when Lord Krishna killed Putna, and before killing, he closed his eyes, and there are so many explanations why he closed his eyes.
Mm.
These are called utpreksha. These are not meant for speculation. These are not realized kind of realizations by great devotees.
Yeah, that utpreksha, that's nice. That the commentaries of our acharyas, they see things from other perspectives many times, but also many of them are self-realized and have entered the uppercut lila of Krishna. They see the pastime, so they see what's happening. But these are higher realizations. But of course, we should study the scriptures and look at it from different angles of view. Like also, when you certain pastimes, you read a pastime, and then you try to visualize it. And by visualizing it, some questions come up and so on. That's interesting. But we see that many times that so many details are revealed by our acharyas. But that's not merely by language study or whatever. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. This Prabhupada concludes, thus it is expected that one who understands this 14th chapter will attain perfection. Because you perform devotional service, then you will attain perfection. Good. Next two. There is a quote. A letter to Chatterbuch, 21st of January, 72. As for the difference between mental speculation and philosophical speculation, we take it that everything is known by psychological action of the mind, so that philosophical speculation is the same as mental speculation if it is merely the random or haphazard activity of the brain to understand everything and form theories, ifs and maybes. But if philosophical speculation is directed by Shastra and Guru, And if the goal of such philosophical attempts is to achieve Vishnu, then philosophical speculation is not mental speculation. For example, Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita that I'm the taste of water. Philosophical speculation in the accepted sense means to try to understand under the direction of Shastra and Guru just how Krishna is the taste of water. The points made in the Bhagavad Gita, though simple and complete, can be understood from unlimited angles of vision. So our philosophy is not the same as dry mental speculation. The proper function of the brain of psychological activities to understand everything from Krishna's perspective or point of view. So there is no limit to that understanding because Krishna is unlimited. And even though it can be said that the devotee who knows Krishna knows everything, 15th chapter, still the philosophical process never stops and the devotee continues to increase his knowledge even though he knows everything. Try to understand this point. It's a very good question. That's 4. Go to the next verse. Itam hyanam upasrityam mama sandhamyam agata sarvapena pachayante palayena vyatanti cha. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So we have heard that. So Krishna is describes here knowledge of the modes. He will describe how they act, how they bind, how they give liberation. And when we understand this, and especially we understand how to transcend these modes, then one comes to the platform of pure devotional service. So being situated in that knowledge, that one will naturally develop spiritual qualities, and Krishna will mention some of them at the end of the chapter when Arjuna asked what are the symptoms of one who has transcended these modes. So ignorant people, they think that liberation means I lose my identity and I merge with the spiritual sky, the Brahmajyoti, and I think the absolute is formless without variegatedness. Actually, spiritual variety is the source of all variety, also in this material world. But all the liberated souls in the spiritual world, what do? They always look at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are eternally engaged in his devotional service. So that's after acquiring perfect knowledge, one acquires qualitative equality with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, becoming free from the repetition of birth and death. And qualitative equality. We realize we are Satchidananda, and then we are not this body. And because we start to identify as a soul and act as a soul, we will not take birth again. That's the principle. So even after liberation, the devotees do not lose their identities, individual identities. So Prabhupada gives a definition of transcendental knowledge here. One of the definitions. knowledge which is not contaminated by the three modes of nature is called transcendental knowledge. And that's on the same platform of the Supreme Lord. And then a little further, it said, however, just as there is material variegatedness in the spiritual world, in this world, in the spiritual world, there is also variegatedness. We will hear more about that in the next chapter. In the next chapter, Lord Krishna will describe or compare this world with a banyan tree upside down. This banyan tree is upside down because the real tree is in the spiritual world. Is a perverted reflection. So everything what exists in the spiritual world exists here in a perverted way. So there must be the same variegatedness. There's variegatedness in this world because it exists in the spiritual world. That's the reason. Otherwise, it cannot exist here. Now the question is that how can I obtain this knowledge? What Krishna is going to give us. So to obtain such knowledge, one must develop all spiritual qualities. One who does develop spiritual qualities is not affected by the creation or the destruction of the material world. Spiritual qualities. And now Krishna will tell us in another way how is the source of everything. Mamma Joni Mahad Brahma Tasvim Garbham Tadamyam Sambhava Sarvabhutanam Tatabhavati Bharata. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the birth of all living beings, a son of God. So he impregnates this, that he impregnates Brahman. So if sometimes the Mahatattva is manifested, sometimes not. There's a dark cloud in the spiritual sky and how does this Mahatattva, how does it develop? We said that in the beginning, Krishna, he with his glance put into Brahman the three modes unmanifested. And then he impregnates it with Kala, time, and the living entities, the jivas. That is what Krishna says, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making the birth possible of all living beings, because that when the living entities are impregnated into the pradhan, it becomes Mahatattva, because it starts to move and the material energies start to act and develop because of the desire of the living entity. So desire is most powerful. That we must be very careful what we desire. We should come to the platform of only desiring the service of Krishna and nothing else. That only desire the service of Krishna. And then we will become liberated in due course of time. So everything that takes place is due to combination of kshatra and kshatra hinaya, or matter and spirit, the body and the spirit soul. That this combination of material nature and living entity is made possible by the Supreme Lord Himself. That's true, it's made possible by the Supreme Lord Himself. But why does He make it possible? Because to fulfill the desire of the living entity to enjoy in this material world. Because of the desire of the living entity. That's why. It's not Krishna's desire. But then further near the end. Yeah. Into material nature, the superior nature is mixed by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thereafter all living entities are born out of this material nature. So the scorpion lays its eggs in piles of rice, and sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of rice. But the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. Actually, the eggs were laid by the mother. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of birth of the living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they only seem to come as products of material nature. Thus, every living entity, according to its past activities, has a different body created by material nature, so that the living entity can enjoy or suffer according to its past deeds. Get a different body. That so Lord Krishna is the father and the mother. Is the father of the living entity, Krishna says, and is also the mother through material nature. Is also the mother of the living entity. Pita, Mata, both. 4. Sarvayonisha Kanteya Muktaya Sambhavantiya Tasham Brahma Mahatyoniyah Ambija Pratapita. It should be understood that all species of life as son of Kunti are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. That so all the appearances in this world are due to Mother Nature, but Krishna says, I'm the seed-giving father. That so the material nature is impregnated with living entities. They come out in various forms at the time of creation and according to their past deeds. That okay, we have a quote here. Someone willing to read the quote? Can you read it? Yeah, please.
Who is the mother? Who is the father? Who is the mother? Who is the father? Material nature is compared to the mother. Although every living being is seen to come out of mother's body, it is still a fact that the mother is not the ultimate cause of such a birth. The father is the ultimate cause of birth. Without the father's seed, no mother can give birth to a child. Therefore, the living beings in different varieties of forms and positions within the innumerable universes are all born of the seeds of Almighty Father, the personality of God. And only to the man with a poor fund of knowledge do they appear to be born of material nature. My dear Arjun, you find so many species of life. 8,400,000. They're all my sons. I'm the seed-giving father. Plants, trees, insects, aquatics, demigods, beasts, birds, and all other living entities are sons or parts and parcels of God. But because they are struggling with different mentalities, they have been given different types of bodies. Mana, Sastri, Indriyani, Prakriti, Sthani, Karsa. Thus, they have become sons of Prakriti or material nature, which is impregnated by the Supreme Personality of God. So the father is always affectionate to the son. The sons may forget the father, but the father cannot forget the son. So Krishna comes here out of his love for us to deliver us, to give us the right path. Sarva Dharman Parityajya. My dear sons, why are you rotting in this material miserable world? You come to me, I'll give you all protection. You are the son of Supreme. So you can enjoy life very supremely, very magnificent, without any death. Why are you rotting? That is Krishna's mercy, a joke. So Bhagavad Gita, the science of Krishna, is not meant for any particular party or particular nation or particular country. It is meant for everyone, even for the animals. We have to learn this science and preach it all over the world so that they can get out of it.
Thank you. Now, Lord Krishna will tell us how the material modes of nature binds us. That how factually the living entity becomes conditioned by these modes. Text 5. Sattvam rajas tamaiti guna bhakti sambhava nibbantnanti mahabaho teo deinam afyayam. Material nature consists of the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with not nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, he becomes conditioned by these modes. That so Krishna is introducing the topic, how a living entity becomes captivated by the modes, and now he will, for each of the modes, explaining how these modes captivate the living entity or bind the living entity. That the living entity and then the living entity must act according to the spell or the dictations of material nature. So these modes makes one act according to material nature, and they are the cause of various forms of so-called happiness and distress in this world. Text 6. It starts with the mode of goodness. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam manamayam sukha sangena bhatnati jnana sangena sangam. O sinless one, the modes of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Thus situated in that mode, one becomes conditioned by a sense of happiness. So we just here have a recap of what we have heard till now. So in verse 1, we have heard how the material nature that it dictates how one acts, it binds or gives liberation. So we have heard one who understands his knowledge by philosophical speculation will come to an understanding of devotional service. Because that's the way to liberate one from the influence of the modes. Being situated in transcendental knowledge and developing spiritual qualities, one can attain a spiritual form equal in quality with Krishna. And then ignorant people think liberation means to lose one's identity and merge into the spiritual sky, which they think is formless and without any variatedness. Actually, spiritual variety is the source of all variety we experience here in this world. All liberated souls in the spiritual world looks to the lotus feet of a Supreme Lord, being eternally engaged in his loving service. And we have Lord Krishna is a father, and material nature is the mother of all living entities. The living entity, although transcendental, is captivated by the three modes of material nature. That now the mode of goodness. You see in the picture a Brahman. The Brahman is supposed to be in the mode of goodness. That, but there is a danger there. The Brahman may think, oh, I'm happy, I'm satisfied, and I'm better than the others. I'm good situated. That kind of satisfaction and happiness binds one, because there's no impetus anymore to come out of the influence of material nature. That it is, yeah. One is in the comfort zone. So the modes of goodness conditions one to happiness, which gives a sense of satisfaction and knowledge, which makes one feel superior to others. I'm better. That. So yes, go back. Oh. We go back to our verse. In the purport, living entities by material nature are of various types. One is happy, this is in the mode of goodness. One is very active, this is a mode of passion. The other is helpless, the mode of ignorance. That. So what happens when we develop the mode of goodness, which is the lifestyle of a devotee? There's a mode of goodness, always clean, taking 2-3 times a day a bath. That be always clean clothes and get up early in the morning. That was all stimulating the mode of goodness. If one develops the mode of goodness, stops all sinful activities, acts out of duty, then one becomes wiser than all the others who are in the other modes, in the lower modes. That, in other words, in the mode of goodness, one is not so much affected by material miseries. That, and there is a sense of advancement in material knowledge. One is more disciplined. That one in a mode of goodness, one is more or less free from sinful reactions. So the mode of goodness, greater knowledge and greater discipline and greater happiness. That, so like we said, the difficulty is they think I'm better than the others. and that makes them conditioned. I'm happy. So as long as one stays in that position, one takes birth again, even if one is in a mode of goodness. So if one is in the mode of goodness, thinking one is happy and satisfied is also illusion. Good. Then text 7. The mode of passion. Rajoragatmakam vidi Krishna Sangha Samudbhavam Dhanipatnati Kauntya Karmasangena Denam. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, so son of Kunti. And because this is the embodied living entity, is bound to material fruitive actions. So that's the mode of passion. The earth is the field of those in the mode of passion mostly. We have to achieve something. We have to become something. But what are we going to become? That the body will die, that's all. Then the end of life, say, I became this and that. Very good. Everyone will say, very good. Bye. You go. It's all over. But those in the mode of passion, they take it very serious. That we have to achieve something, we have to become something. So the mode of passion is characterized by the attraction between man and woman. And that's the mode of passion. When the mode of passion is increased, one develops the hankering for material enjoyment. For sense gratification, a man in the mode of passion wants some honor in society. These are the products of the mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after these things, he has to work very hard. The whole material world is more or less in the mode of passion. The entire material world is in the mode of passion. So the mode of passion, if pure, is more elevated than many devotees realize. Western culture, music, etc., is often considered in the mode of goodness, but often represents passion or lower, as evinced by the number of eccentric and mentally tortured poets, musicians, philosophers, etc. Yes. Even classic music had a lot of passion in it. Tchaikovsky and Mozart, all is filled. Anyway, that it's maybe more elevated than the rock star music, but it's passion. That's what it is. Then the mode of ignorance, 8, that Tasmagyana Chamviti Manam Sarvadenam Pramadolasya Nidrapis Tanivatnati Bharata. Person of Bharat know that the mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The result of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. Madness, indolence, and sleep. The mode of ignorance, Prabhupada writes, is just the opposite of goodness. No. A madman cannot understand what is what. So it does not, we will hear later, in the mode of ignorance thinks what is binding is liberating, and what's liberating is binding. Just the opposite. That it does constantly the opposite than what it should do. That a madman cannot understand what is what. In generally, being under the modes of nature means you are a madman. That's what you are. That even the mode of goodness. The mode of goodness makes you also identify and binds you also, we have just learned. The madness is not so deep in the mode of goodness, but in a mode of ignorance, very deep. In the Vedic literature, it is said, Vastu yatam ya jnana varakam, vipaya jnana janakam tamaha. Under the spell of ignorance, one cannot understand the thing as it is. So, Prabhupada gives the example. Someone sees that one's grandfather has died, grandmother has died, the father has maybe already died. And still the person goes on accumulating wealth with great passion and striving to achieve so many things which are temporary, and then it's all finished. It's illusion that I see in I'm from Flanders in Belgium, Flemish people, and they are a bit like German, quite disciplined, hard workers, and they are simple people usually. And a boy and a girl marries, and that a Flemish person is born with a brick in his stomach. He has to build his own house. That and you see many castles as houses, very nice houses. So they start building their house, and of course they have to work with two to pay for the house, because they have a mortgage of more than 30 years to pay. But they have their own house. So they are working for the house 30, 40 years. And then they are 60 or older, and then the loan is paid. It's ours. And a few years later, leaving the body. So their whole life, that's their whole life. That's that's it's not only in Flanders, I think, but there it's the disease is also here. That so that is sure. Still, people are madly accumulating money and working very hard all day and night, not caring for the eternal spirit. That they are reluctant to make advancement in spiritual understanding. Such people are very lazy. Materialistic people are lazy in terms of self-realization. That's the problem. That when they are invited to associate for spiritual understanding, they are not much interested. They say, what's the use of this? Live and enjoy. That don't, you are losing your time. Enjoy. That's the mode of passion and ignorance. So of course, especially those in the mode of ignorance, they eat more than required, they sleep more than required, they take intoxication, and sleeping is their happiness. One in the mode of ignorance sleeps at least 10 to 12 hours a day. Yeah. Such men appear to be always dejected and addicted to intoxicants. So yes, that's the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance conditions one to madness, indolence, and sleep. So these three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, it's like gold, silver, and iron. So you are in the prison and you get shackles with a big ball. You can't move. And some are in gold, some are in silver, some are iron, but it binds you all three. The effect is the same. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Of course, Krishna speaks about these modes here, but why does he speak about these modes? Of course, to understand how they bind and how to get liberated from them. But when we hear that, we must get out of this bondage. And we must get out of this bondage by purification of the heart. So that this greed is going. The greed is going, the mode of passion is going. We stop sinful activities. The mode of ignorance is going. We adopt a lifestyle in the mode of goodness, living like a devotee. And you become already more satisfied in your material life. You get already the best material life, but then you have to still to get out of it by practicing devotion service. If we chant Hare Krishna, then gradually we go up in this mode. That gradually. Because the heart becomes purified. And when we are nearly liberated, we are in goodness. Then we have to come to pure or transcendental goodness by devotional service. Therefore also, you can chant in the modes, your japa in the modes. You can chant in the mode of passion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna. In the mode of passion. Oh yeah, you can chant in the mode of ignorance. No, we should chant in mode of goodness, happiness. With all our affliction, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna. So this is an introduction to the modes of nature. And any question? Yes.
What is the connection between mind and Maya?
Mind is made of material energy. And Maya works through the material energy. So Maya, the material mind, if not under control by transcendental intelligence, it's the field of Maya. And the mind will control you. And how does the mind control you? That we heard today. The mind is made of matter, of the three modes. We must bring the mind to the mode of goodness. Then it's our friend. Well, not really. When the mind is engaged in devotion service, it's our friend. But goodness is better. So even if we don't think of Krishna during the day, if we live in a mode of goodness, the mind comes to goodness. And that's a platform from where we can transcend. So therefore, we must always live in goodness. That was also when a lifestyle in the mode of goodness is a lifestyle of a Vaishnava. That my Guru Maharaj was also born in a Vaishnava family. And when Prabhupada gave Bhakti Maharaj initiation, first and second initiation at the same time, and two months later sannyas initiation, the Buddha said, why are you giving so quickly initiation to him? And he said, if he falls down to the mode of goodness. So that we need to learn to come to live in the mode of goodness. If we live in the mode of goodness, our mind is in the mode of goodness. And then it's much more easier to perform devotional service. But if the mind is influenced by passion and ignorance and meditates on enjoyment the whole time, it's Maya dragging you down. So the mind is essential in yoga practice, must be controlled. That's the principle. And we control it by engaging in devotional service. Does that help?
I feel that the mind is too strong. Krishna should have made it a little weak.
That was the same objection from Arjun. But I give you the same applies, Krishna says. Yes, it can be done by suitable practice and attachment. But yes, Mama Maya Drachya Mami Vaye Papachanti Maya Medam Trant. Deva Yesuguna Maya Mama Maya Drachya. It's very difficult to overcome. And those who have transcended the modes can, those who perform devotional service can easily transcend it. That's the point. Yeah, not easy. Thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
So you said, Krishna said that the people in the mode of goodness are conditioned by the feeling of satisfaction and the feeling of honor, maybe superiority of others.
Yeah.
So let's just say that we are living in the mode of goodness. We probably aren't, but let's say that we are. How do you not fall into that trap?
How to not fall into that trap. We fall into that trap because of false ego. And that false ego, yes, it's the idea that I want satisfaction, honor for myself, and so on. That, but how to not fall into this trap? Don't listen to your mind. That do everything based on Krishna's instructions. Always, whatever you do, think first. Think first. Will my spiritual master be pleased with that? Will Srila Prabhupada be pleased with that? Will Krishna be pleased with that? Is that? If we are not sure, don't do it, wait. And that's a discipline we have to learn. That because we are used to accept and reject based on what gives profit to this body, and what gives pain to this body. Yeah. But we have to learn to accept and reject based on what Krishna desires. Because that's the absolute truth. That will help us. Hare Krishna. Is that okay, Prabhu? Yeah.
Well, it is more technical. Maharaj, you mentioned about when Krishna impregnates the pradhana, that can the souls being pregnant. And then desire plays a role in that.
This,
Desire, the desire plays a big role. So where actually technically desire is stored? Is it with the soul, or the soul has just impression of
no, you have the soul, it impregnates the jivas. That means the jivas who were dormant during the previous since the previous creation, and the desires they had at the end of previous creation, they are with the soul in a subtle form. These desires are there, and then the jivas are injected into this material nature, unmanifested. But by their desires, influence of their desire, the material energies start to move. To fulfill these desires finally. The same thing, by desire, we said we push different buttons. And these different buttons are activating material nature. In the same way, we are activating material nature by our desire, a desire different from pleasing Krishna. Every desire. And that can be desires we learn here in the 3 modes, but it's binding. It will create future bodies. That then material nature start to prepare for making these bodies, and it start to move. So it's desire that moves everything. It's subtle, but that in the purport of Bhagavad Gita further, we will hear that we had, I think it was before we heard it, Srila Prabhupada said, yes, that because we get a material body, but because we are desiring to put ourselves in these conditions. It's by our desire. So desire is a cause of bondage or liberation. Desire for Krishna will liberate us and purify us. Desire to enjoy will contaminate us. How that technically works in its subtleties, I cannot explain. But he injects living entities with their desires. That's a fact. That's in the Bible. I guess.
Yeah, that helps. I don't know if anywhere it is given, like, what is the position of the soul? Because I was thinking soul will have consciousness, but it seems it has more than that, because it is saving the desire also.
And the symptom is consciousness. The action of the soul is desire. And in the spiritual world, desires are fulfilled immediately. Here it's fulfilled through material nature. But desire is always there. And consciousness is always there. But the material world is covered over by material nature. It's never absent. That if we are in deep sleep, we are still conscious, but we are only conscious of the soul. The consciousness is in the soul. There is no consciousness of external material nature, but consciousness is always there.
But it's also saying that the spirit soul constitutionally is also Satchidananda.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he gets polluted because of material desire.
The consciousness becomes polluted. The consciousness of the spirit soul becomes polluted. The spirit soul does not become polluted, but it's the consciousness from the.
Then what's the role of karma? Because it says karma devi jantur devo papatte. It's a Kapil Dev.
Yeah, but our consciousness becomes contaminated, and by that the spirit soul start to identity with material nature and pushes the button. I want material desire. And that's how it works. Yeah. So Krishna consciousness means removing our contamination. Yeah. Yeah. In Satya Yuga, the mode of goodness is prominent. So everyone is peaceful. It's wonderful. And everyone can meditate. Easy. There's no disturbance of the mind by material desires. They are nearly liberated in Satya Yuga. So therefore the process is meditation. But in Tetra Yuga, vice comes in and they lose their capability for meditation because material desires start to arise. But still the Brahmas are still quite qualified. Therefore the process for that age is Jagya, fire sacrifice. But then the mode of Dvapara, that it becomes worse, and there are no qualified Brahmins anymore because everyone is in a mode of passion, practically. Passion is very strong and takes over. But there are still a few Brahmins or who can do deity worship. So deity worship is a process. But Kali Yuga, everything is gone. Everyone is in a mode of ignorance or ignorance passion, that combination. Ignorance means everyone drinks alcohol and intoxications, is addicted to sex life and all these things. And that's very difficult. And that's our situation. But yes, that but still Kali Yuga, that Srila Vyasadeva said Kali Yuga is the best age. Because in that age, simply by the chanting of the holy names, one can purify oneself and liberate oneself. So that's our process. Yes, okay. Yes, Prachan. The body is made of material nature. And the body, the material nature, the body is our field of activities. And it's made of material nature, that the body. And we get different bodies that in different modes. We will hear about an animal body is in the mode of ignorance. My question, thank you.
Maharaj, I have heard the Kalau Sudra Sambhava.
Yeah, Kalau Sudra Sambhava.
For it, where is it say?
I think that if we look in the days, in the search functions, yeah. Kalau Sudra Sambhava. See, I don't know, hit list. Kalau Sudra Sambhava. Prabhupada quotes it in, therefore Kala Sudra Sambhava. Everyone is Sudra in this age. It's probably mentioned somewhere here. So Kala Sudra Sambhava. In the Kali Yuga, everyone is Sudra. That Anyway, it's not mentioned here in Prabhupada.
Let's say where the source is.
Yeah, it can be like the Kali Santara Upanishad, the Hare Krishna mantra is mentioned. That's a possibility, but also in other places. That's maybe a good place to look. Prabhupada quotes it a lot here, but he didn't give us the quote. I didn't find it. Good. Then we will pause for 10 minutes, and 20 past 8 we continue with the next section. And Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, we will continue that with second part, verses 10 till 18 of chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. Now we will hear how the modes give us certain results. What's the result of acting in a certain mode? And we will hear also, if you die in a certain mode, what happens? That the text 10. Rajas tamas habibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata. Rajas sattvam tamasheva tamas sattvam rajastata. Sometimes the mode of passion becomes prominent, defeating the mode of passion and ignorance. Person of Bharat, sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and sometimes, and other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there's always competition for supremacy. So that competition is always going on in the modes. And we have to get out of this competition. But like when you develop the mode of goodness, you will defeat passion and ignorance. So how to develop the goodness? So it means we have to change our modes to goodness. How to change our mode to goodness? And interesting, in the 11th canto of the Gita, Krishna explains how to change the modes. And I want to read one verse there, how to change the modes from the Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11. That we go to the Uddhav Gita, text 13:4. So this is how you can change your mode. According to the quality of religious scriptures, water, one's association with one's children or with people in general, the particular place, the time, activities, birth, meditation, chanting of mantras, and purificatory rituals. The modes of nature becomes differently prominent. Purport. The 10 items mentioned above possess superior and inferior qualities and are thus identified as being in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. One can increase the mode of goodness by selecting religious scriptures in goodness. Pure water, friendship with other persons in goodness, and so on. One should scrupulously avoid any of these 10 items that may be polluted by an inferior mode of nature. So, religious scriptures, water, one's association with people, the place. We can be in a place of passion, a place of ignorance. But the time, the activities, birth, meditation, chanting of mantras. Yeah, that we are chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, but those who, the tantrics, they also chant mantras in the mode of ignorance. That's different. The particular place, the best place is a temple. That's the best place. The time, the best time is the morning. The activities, only one activity, devotional service. Birth, we try to avoid that, but anyway, it's also a way to change your modes. Yeah, when a devotee in Vrindavan, he went to one of the other temples, and the pujari was praising him. That very nice, you are in ISKCON. He spoke to a Western devotee. By that, your next life, you will take birth in a Brahmin family. And he went back, the devotee, to the temple and went to Prabhupada and said what he has said. Oh, Prabhupada said, tell this pujari that because he's a Brahmin, he's worshipping the deity. So by that, in his next birth, he can take birth in ISKCON. Yeah, because that's the transcendental movement. That's by birth. And meditation, yeah. You can meditate on so many things in this world. Don't do it. Meditate on Krishna. So this is how to change the modes. That yeah, of course, we will hear more about this. We go back to Bhagavad Gita. Oh, go back. 14:11 now. So, Sarvadveshu desmin prakasa upajayate jnanam yada tata vidya vividam sattvam ityuta. The manifestation of the mode of goodness can be experienced well when all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge. So it means, Prabhupada said, what does it mean that all the gates of the body are illuminated by knowledge? Because in the mode of goodness, one can see things in the right position, can hear things in the right position. One knows I'm a spirit soul. That one knows as knowledge how these modes are binding. That so if the one is in a mode of goodness, symptoms of happiness develop. That's the position of goodness. Verse 11. Yeah. That, of course, we can also speak of personal experience. You become a devotee and your life becomes auspicious, much more peaceful than before. You don't do these sinful activities anymore. That's a big thing. That every devotee can experience that. That's good. We have a quote, I think. The quote on 11. Different quotes. I will read a few of them. Dhruva Maharaj, when he saw the Lord just in front of him, was greatly agitated and offered his obeisance and respect. He fell flat before him like a rod and became absorbed in love of God. Dhruva in ecstasy looked upon the Lord as if he were drinking in the Lord with his eyes, kissing the Lord's feet of the Lord with his mouth and embracing the Lord with his arms. How does this apply to us? In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that we can see Krishna with our ears by hearing. O Lord, my devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their heart becomes cleansed and you take seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you. So yes, this is transcendental happiness. Let's go back to here. 11, 12, 13. O chief of the Bhartas, when there is an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. So when there is no illumination, then and there is a mode of passion, one is never satisfied. One wants more and more and more. Dus en alleen als that mode of lust is born of passion. And one wants more and more and more, never satisfied. He hankers to increase his position. He tries to get as much as comfort for sense gratification, and he tries to maintain that eternally. That's a big illusion. Text 13. Aprakasa pravitisha pramadomoy vasha tamasitani jayante vivideko nandana. When there is an increase in the mode of ignorance, O son of darkness, inertia, madness, and illusion are manifested. So one acts for no purpose, Prabhupada says. Although consciousness is going on, is inactive, sleeping, dreaming. That is a mode of ignorance. So we have 14. Yada sattve pravite tu palayam yadideyabrit tadottama vidam loka amalam patipachyate. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages. One in goodness attains higher planets like Brahmaloka or Janaloka, and there enjoys godly happiness. The word Amalan is significant. It means free from the modes of passion and ignorance. There are impurities in the material world, but the mode of goodness is the purest form of existence in the material world. There are different kinds of planets for different kinds of living entities. Those who die in the mode of goodness are elevated to the planets where great sages and devotees live. So it clearly speaks about Brahma Loka, Jana Loka, Tapa Loka, Maya Loka. It does not speak about Svarga. Svarga is passion. Not so, but it's maybe it's passion, but also goodness in Svara, but it's a mixture. No ignorance there. That there's a mode of goodness. It attains these higher planets. And then you get a long, long life there. That now 15. Rajasi palayam katva karma sangi sujayate tataha palayina stamasi mudajoni sujayate. When one dies in the mode of passion, it takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. When one dies in the mode of ignorance, it takes birth in the animal kingdom. That so the fruitive activities, when one dies in the mode of passion, mostly the human form of life, but we are usually not pure in the mode of passion. It's a mixture because no, especially in Kali Yuga, I find it's a mixture. Some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. That is incorrect. So some may say, how can humans become animals? But that's explained here, the science, how that happens. But that's according to this verse, if one develops a mode of ignorance, after his death is degraded to an animal form of life. From there, one has to again elevate himself by the evolutionary process to come again to the human form of life. One has to go up again. Takes hundreds of animal lives, and then you get back a human form. Therefore, those who are actually serious about human life should take to the mode of goodness, and in good association transcend in the mode of goodness and become situated in Krishna consciousness. This is the aim of human life. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that the human being will again attain to the human status. That so that was 15, and we have a quote on 15. 15. Oh yeah, that's a famous quote. A university of a wise student asked Srila Prabhupada what harm there was in becoming a dog. What is the wrong there if I become a dog? Yes, he said flatly, I shall forget everything. So this is university education, that one is not afraid of becoming a dog. He thinks that this is also very good. So where is the humanity? Where is the human civilization? Srila Prabhupada, you have my blessing. Hare Krishna. A foolish student. Karmana sukritasyahu satvikam nirmalam phalam rajasastu phalam dukam ahyanam tamasa phalam. The result of wise action is pure. It's said to be in the mode of goodness. But action done in mode of passion results in misery. Action performed in the mode of ignorance results in foolishness. So we have heard before that death in the modes, now the results of action. That yes, one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains higher planetary systems. When one dies in passion, you come to the earth, one engaged in fruitive activities, one in ignorance, animal kingdom. But now what's the result of action in the modes? The result of wise action is pure. Action of passion is misery, and the mode of ignorance results in foolish. So Krishna says action in passion is misery. So the action of wanting to enjoy results in misery. Enjoyment is misery. That's what explained here. Material enjoyment, misery. That's what you get. Jisam Swasgabra Dukayonka Evate Atyantavantakante Nati Shoma Debuta. 522. The sages said, when one wants to enjoy, the result will be misery, suffering, and its temper, it's not worthwhile. So activities in the mode of passion are simply misery. There may be a little so-called mental happiness. I have this house or this money, but it's not actually happiness. The performer without knowledge is without knowledge and ignorance. And therefore, all these activities result in misery. These activities are misery, the result is misery. And afterwards, he will go to animal life. Slaughtering poor animals is also due to the mode of ignorance. Because of ignorance, people do not perceive that there is a complete state controlled by the Supreme Lord. Every living creature is a son of the Supreme, and he does not tolerate even an ant being killed. One has to pay for it. So the Brahmanas are a symbol of spiritual education. So the mode of goodness means protecting cows and Brahmins. The Brahmins and the cows must be given all protection. That is real advancement of civilization. In human society, spiritual knowledge is neglected and cow killing is encouraged. A civilization which guides the citizens to become animals in their next life is certainly not a human civilization. 16. Now 17. What if one cultivates a certain mode? What will one develop? Satvate sanyate jnanam rajaso lobha evasha pramadamo tamaso bhavatu jnanam evasha. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolishness, madness, and illusion develops. But then it says in the purport, though Krishna consciousness, society, through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of good ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see clearly. Because people have no education in actual knowledge, they become irresponsible. That if the world is devoted to the mode of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. Even if one has enough money and adequate arrangement for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. So for people to become happy and prosperous, they must be educated in the mode of goodness by the process of Krishna consciousness. Because otherwise there will be greed, hankering, sense enjoyment, passion, and so on. And intoxication in the mode of ignorance. Now, 18 speaks about destinations. Utvam gachanti sattvasta matye tishtanti rajasa jaganya guna vrittista ado gachanti tammasa. Those situated in the mode of goodness surely go upwards to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. So at the end, it says, Tamasa indicates those who stay continuously in the mode of ignorance without rising to a higher mode. Their future is very dark. There is an opportunity for man in the mode of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness. And that system is called Krishna consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity will surely continue in the lower modes. There are two quotes here, 18. So this is the middle planetary system. This earthly planet is called Burloka. Then above this, there is Bhuvarloka. And then there is Svargaloka. Om Bhuvar Sva. They are heavenly planets. The heavenly planets beginning from the moon planets. Aganya, Gunaviti, Star, Doga, Chanti, Tamasa. And those who are in the mode of darkness go down to animal life. So this human form of life is a chance to make our choice where we will go next, in the higher or in the lower, or remain here. We cannot elevate ourselves by spaceships. So if we like, we can go to the higher planetary system, heavenly planetary system. Just like we are trying to go to the moon planet, but we have not been successful. In this way, we cannot go there. Each and every planet has different atmosphere. Very interesting. It was 1969, I think. I was nearly 10 years old. In the middle of the night, my mother waked me up. Come to see, they are landing on the moon. I had to come down to this black and white television at that time, seeing how they walked on the moon. But interesting is that now we are more than 50 years later, and for 50 years, they didn't go there. Why not? What's the problem? It looks a little, some cheating must be there. That each and every planet has different atmosphere. So unless your body is completely competent to live on such a planet, you cannot go there. Just like the scientists say that on the moon planet, the temperature is 200 degrees below zero. Similarly, on the sun planet, the temperature is very, very high, hundreds and thousands of degrees above normal. So in this way, every planet has a different atmosphere, different temperature, different standards of life, different duration of life. So one has to become competent to transfer himself to a particular type of planet. That's a long quote. We will now recap our last section by looking at the slides. There. This is, no, it's the other one. Here. So we have heard the mode of goodness. There is constant competition among the modes, but with determination and practice, one can develop the mode of goodness. Important for us, practical point, we must always be engaged in the mode of goodness and develop the mode of goodness. Yeah. We have heard how to do that. By transcending the modes of nature, one can be situated in pure goodness. One can be and can understand the signs of God. I will share again because it says, yeah. So, pious action in the mode of goodness gives results. pure results. Action in passion gives misery, and action in ignorance gives foolishness. Modern civilization, which indulges in animal slaughter, is progressing toward the darkness of ignorance. For people to become happy and prosperous, they must be educated in the mode of goodness by the process of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, they will be affected by greed and hankering for sense enjoyment in the mode of passion or madness, and intoxication in the mode of ignorance. Activities in goodness lead one to birth in higher planets. Activities in passion give one birth to on this earth, whereas activities in ignorance give one hellish life in the next life. So that's it. Any questions? Good. Then we stop here and we meet again at 11. And then we will finish the chapter on how to transcend the modes. Good. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, very good question. That's text number 2 translation. You said that one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Because we are totally out from that spirituality. So, but we are the parts and parcel.
Yeah.
So that nature will come. So when we go back there, but Lord is totally different platform. How can we come to the level of like my all?
Yeah. So we are one and different with Krishna. We are also Satchidananda, the same quality, but still we are limited, he's unlimited. But it means that we have to come to our platform Satchidananda. The soul is made of Satchidananda, eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. It is now covered over by these modes. We have to remove these modes, that's all. And that we do by devotional service. And when the modes are removed, we are on the same qualitative platform of Krishna. And therefore we can serve Krishna directly at that moment. As long as we are covered, we serve Krishna through the medium of the spiritual master. That's the principle. Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
What is our opinion or what belief regarding science? Did they go to the planet or they went to an asteroid or?
I must say that, first of all, that's not important for my spiritual life. Whether they went to the moon or not, that they can search it out. It is a fact that we can realize that we are a spirit soul and different from this body. So I'm not so much concerned with this spiritual world, but I can say 50 years they did not go to the moon. Why not? That indicates cheating. That there is a problem there. Otherwise, they would have gone back.
Somebody has published a book that they say they never went there and they have done whole visualization in the desert of Nevada.
Yeah.
Area 52 or something.
Yeah, there are documentaries about that. So yeah, some politics and
Start that kind of.
yeah, it's not nice. Hi, Krishna. Thank you.